It cost $25 billion to build a city within the city, housing offices, apartments, parks, restaurants, and shopping. And today, Hudson Yards officially opened to the public, the much anticipated mega development transforming the west side of Manhattan.
In the heart of Manhattan, where the island bends west toward the Hudson River, there is a place that did not exist 20 years ago. Not a neighborhood, not even a street map. Just a mass of exposed rail tracks, steel, noise, and a depression in the land that most New Yorkers never looked at twice. For more than a century, trains passed through this open pit on the west side, carrying commuters in and out of Penn Station. It was industrial land, useful but invisible. No one imagined a skyline here. No one imagined towers rising from a deck built above moving trains, and no one imagined that this forgotten corner of the city would become the most expensive real estate project in American history. That project is Hudson Yards, and the story of how it appeared, how it was financed, engineered, built, contested, and marketed, reveals something much bigger than New York City. It reveals the future of Western megaprojects, the new economics of urban development, the pressure on cities to reinvent themselves, and the thin line between ambition and overreach. To understand Hudson Yards, you must first understand the land beneath it. The rail yards are not symbolic. They are literal. 12 active train tracks run beneath the neighborhood. They never stopped operating during construction. Engineers had to design a platform, an elevated steel deck, strong enough to support skyscrapers while leaving enough open space below for ventilation, emergency access, and the movement of trains. This required more than 300 concrete-filled caissons drilled deep into Manhattan bedrock, supporting a 37,000-ton platform. The engineering challenge was so unusual that only a handful of companies in the world could design or build it. The scale is equally striking. Hudson Yards spans 28 acres and cost more than $25 billion to develop, making it the most expensive private real estate project in U.S. history. For comparison, the rebuilding of the World Trade Center complex cost about $15 billion. Chicago's Millennium Park, one of the most ambitious civic projects in modern American history, cost roughly $500 million. Hudson Yards exceeded both in magnitude, ambition, and complexity. But what emerged on top of that platform is where the real story begins. A new neighborhood of glass towers, luxury residential buildings, high-end offices, a cultural arts center, an open-air plaza, restaurants from Michelin star chefs, and one of the highest outdoor observation decks in the Western Hemisphere. A neighborhood marketed not simply as a place to live or work, but as a curated lifestyle ecosystem, designed, built, and branded from scratch. A Western experiment in controlled urbanism. Hudson Yards was not built because the city needed more land. It was built because New York needed a future-proofed economic engine. In the 2000s and early 2000s, the West Side was considered underdeveloped relative to Midtown and downtown. The city looked at the rail yards as an opportunity to create a new business district, one that could absorb demand from financial firms, media companies, tech sectors, and global brands. Manhattan had nowhere left to expand horizontally. It could only expand upward or outward toward the river. The rail yards were the final frontier. The timing also mattered. After the 2008 financial crisis, global investment flowed into stable assets, especially American real estate. New York developers leveraged this moment, securing billions from institutional investors, banks, pension funds, and foreign partners. Hudson Yards became a symbol of post-recession resilience, a message that New York was open for business, attracting companies like BlackRock, Wells Fargo, Warner Media, L'Oreal, KKR, SAP, and dozens of others. But while Hudson Yards grew vertically, a different narrative grew beneath it. Critics questioned whether it represented the future of American cities, or the failure of them. The project sparked one of the most intense debates in modern urban planning. On one side were those who saw Hudson Yards as a triumph, a once-in-a-generation engineering feat, a new economic engine, and a model for transforming industrial wastelands into productive, livable urban zones. On the other side were critics who argued that Hudson Yards was too expensive, too exclusive, too corporate, too polished, too detached from the organic character of New York. A city within a city, but one built for the wealthy, not the public. Yet the facts speak to a more complex reality. Hudson Yards generates hundreds of millions in tax revenue and employs tens of thousands of people. It brought new subway infrastructure, the 7-line extension, to a part of Manhattan that lacked transit. It created public plazas and green spaces in an area that had none. And it allowed New York to compete with global business districts like London's Canary Wharf, Tokyo's Shibuya redevelopment, Singapore's Marina Bay, and Paris's La Défense. Still, the project did face real challenges. The retail mall struggled during the pandemic and post-pandemic years as physical shopping across the United States declined. Office occupancy also faced pressure as remote work reshaped corporate real estate demand. The project's centerpiece sculpture, the Vessel, faced public safety controversies and was closed indefinitely. Critics pointed out that the neighborhood felt disconnected from the rest of Manhattan, an island of wealth, as some called it, rather than an integrated part of the city's social fabric. But even with these challenges, Hudson Yards continues to evolve. New residential phases are being considered. The second half of the project, East Hudson Yards, remains in development planning. The platform for that section will require even more engineering complexity, as it spans active rail operations and future transit expansions. New York is planning an additional 5 to 6 skyscrapers, more green spaces, and more commercial offerings once that phase begins. To understand its significance, one must consider what Hudson Yards symbolizes in a broader Western context. Across the United States and Europe, megaprojects face familiar barriers: political gridlock, public skepticism, environmental review delays, funding shortfalls, and long approval cycles. Few large-scale developments even reach the construction phase. Fewer still reach completion. Hudson Yards is one of the rare exceptions, a megaproject that went from concept to reality within a generation. But it also demonstrates the shifting priorities in Western urbanization. Cities are no longer expanding outward, they are repurposing inward. Old ports become waterfront districts, old rail yards become mixed-use hubs, old factories become tech campuses. The industrial foundations of the 20th century are being replaced by the service, finance, tech, and entertainment economy of the 21st. Hudson Yards also reveals a new model of private-public partnership. The city did not pay for most of the development, but it invested in key infrastructure, especially the subway extension. Developers finance the rest, assuming the risk and the reward. This model is increasingly common in Western megaprojects, where governments have limited budgets and private capital fills the gap. But financial innovation alone does not explain its magnitude. The core driver was confidence. Confidence that New York would remain a global capital, that businesses would continue locating here, that people would continue seeking luxury housing, that global tourism would remain strong, that American cities still held competitive advantages even as other world cities raced ahead. Yet Hudson Yards does not exist in a vacuum. It sits at the center of multiple long-term forces reshaping American cities: remote work versus office demand, inflation in construction costs, interest rate fluctuations, debates over affordable housing, cultural shifts in urban life, and the future of retail. Every one of these forces will determine what Hudson Yards becomes 10, 20, or 50 years from now. Critics say it is too expensive to maintain. Supporters say it is too valuable to fail. Reality lies somewhere in between. Hudson Yards is not a finished product, it is a living experiment. And like all experiments, some elements succeed while others evolve. For example, the Edge Observation Deck became a global tourism magnet, drawing millions of visitors in just a few years. Companies leasing office space have shown strong long-term commitment, suggesting stability in the district's commercial base. Residential demand, despite high prices, remains strong due to scarcity in Manhattan's luxury market. Meanwhile, retail is being reconfigured from high-end boutiques toward more experiential offerings, reflecting broader national trends. There is also the question of cultural integration. Can a planned district feel like New York? Or does it become an international zone? Functional, polished, efficient, but emotionally distant from the city's character. Over time, culture tends to fill all spaces. Neighborhoods gain identity not from architecture, but from the people who inhabit them, the stories they produce, the rituals they form. Already, Hudson Yards hosts concerts, art installations, seasonal events, and cultural programming that gradually embeds it into the city's social fabric. Then there is the broader question: what does Hudson Yards tell us about the future of Western megaprojects? In the past, Western infrastructure was driven by public spending: highways, bridges, ports, power grids. Today, the most ambitious projects are often real estate-driven, mega developments that combine living, working, retail, entertainment, and tourism. They are cities built by corporations, shaped by market demand, and branded like global products. This shift raises deeper questions about who designs cities, who benefits from them, and how they fit into the broader fabric of national economies. Hudson Yards is a case study in these questions. It is not a utopia, nor a dystopia, but a mirror. It reflects the evolution of Western urban life, its ambitions, its contradictions, its pressures, its opportunities. But for all the debates, one fact remains undeniable. Hudson Yards transformed Manhattan's geography. It turned unused airspace above moving trains into one of the most expensive square miles of real estate on Earth. It demonstrated that Western cities still have the capacity for large-scale transformation, even in an era of political division and economic volatility. And it signaled that the future of American urbanization lies not in expanding boundaries, but in reimagining what already exists. If the first century of New York was about building upward, and the second was about spreading outward, the third is about building smarter, denser, more flexible, more interconnected, more economically diversified. Hudson Yards is part of that evolution. Not perfect, not complete, but undeniably significant. And perhaps that is why this project matters more than its critics or supporters realize. Because in an era when many Western cities feel constrained, stagnant, or uncertain, Hudson Yards is proof that ambition still exists, that megaprojects are still possible, that engineering and finance can still reshape landscapes, that cities can still reinvent themselves even when the world thinks they have reached their limits. Hudson Yards is not just a neighborhood, it is a signal, one that says the Western world has not given up on building. It is a reminder that urban transformation is still achievable, and it is a challenge to every other global city. What will you build next?